Hi guys, I've got the next reading passage for you. It is reading passage number 7, I believe, Stand Up by Sitting Down, the true story of the Greensboro sit-in. I'm going to read the passage with you, go over some key vocabulary terms, and then we're going to do questions 2 and 3 together. I'm going to have you do the rest on your own and respond to the write it out question. All right, so before we start, I want you to think back to February when we talked a lot about civil rights and the civil rights movement and what African Americans had to go through and deal with just to get equal rights. So I want you to write down your schema, write down your background knowledge right here. What's something you already know about maybe the way they were treated? And just one word, sit-in, that you might not know what that means. A sit-in is when African Americans would actually go to a restaurant where they were not going to be served any food because of their race, and they would sit there and they would stay quiet, and it was a non-violent way of standing up for their rights. So let's start the passage. On February 1st, 1960, in the town of Greensboro, North Carolina, which is just about 3 hours from here, 4 African American college students sat down on high stools at the lunch counter of the local Woolworth's department store. They weren't sitting down for a cup of coffee or a slice of pie. They were sitting down to change the world, or at least a part of it. Throughout the South, prejudice against African Americans was common. I'm just going to highlight prejudice. That's when you are treated poorly because of your race or your religion. The Woolworth's lunch counter, like many restaurants, hotels, and hospitals, refused to serve African Americans. This humiliating treatment had many African Americans fed up, saying no more. So Eswell A., Blair Jr., Franklin McCain, Joseph O'Neill, and David Richmond, the 4 students, decided to fight back without violence. And I'm going to go through and just number. This is paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, and now we're on paragraph 3. The 4 men walked into Woolworth's with a clear plan of action. They knew the waitress would refuse to serve them. They knew other customers would treat them rudely. Some may even try to hurt them. But no matter what, the men vowed they would remain peaceful and polite, even to those who behaved hatefully toward them. Paragraph 4. They'd been inspired by civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., and in parentheses, that is the date that he was born and the date that he passed away. Dr. King urged African Americans to challenge prejudice and demand equal treatment. But he did not believe in using violence to get results. King said that love can lead to understanding, but hate only leads to more hate. We read a good book on him back in February. African Americans, he said, must do something extremely difficult: fight violence and hate with peace and love. Going down to paragraph number 5. The 4 men in Greensboro believed passionately or strongly in the teachings of Dr. King, but as they took their seats at the counter, they had to wonder, would these ideas work? Paragraph 6. Indeed, they did. By the end of the week, the 4 were joined by hundreds of protesters. So those were other people fighting for equal rights. News of their sit-in spread around the country, and soon other groups were protesting at Woolworths around the country and other segregated or separated restaurants in the South. By July, the counter of Woolworths was officially open to African Americans. Other restaurants soon followed. Through their simple act of sitting down, the 4 men took a bold or strong stand for equality, justice, and peace. Equality and justice just mean equal rights. I'm just going to highlight bold. Okay, and we know what equality, justice, we said it means to be equal. All right, so I just want you to think for a minute. Let's kind of recap what we just read. It's all about the Greensboro sit-in. They were sitting in at the restaurant Woolworth, the department store, the restaurant in the department store Woolworth's. And they use peace and love instead of hate to get their point across. And it did work. By the end of the week, news had spread and word had gotten out, and by the summertime, they were allowed to eat at the restaurant. So let's take a look at our questions now. All right. And like I said, you're going to be doing number 1. I'm going to be doing numbers 2 and 3. So you're going to do 1, 4, 5, 6, and then write it out. So let's read number 2. From this article, and we know this is a nonfiction. This is all true, so it's a nonfiction, informational article. You can tell the 4 protesters, so those were the 4 men, were, okay, I'm going to read all my choices. Very hungry, were committed to nonviolence, were wealthy, which means rich men, had met Dr. King. Okay, so let's think about what they were. We know that these men would do anything to get their point across. So we can see that we've got a few places that we can prove. They were joined by other protesters, so they did this all week. They did the sit-in all week. So I'm going to put Q2. And I'm also going to come up to paragraph 3, but no matter what, the men vowed they would remain peaceful and polite. I'm going to put Q2 as well. So they were very determined to get their point across in a peaceful manner. So let's look. Committed to nonviolence. So F. They were committed to nonviolence. Nonviolence means they were not violent, so peaceful. All right, let's look at number 3. How did the 4 men know the waitress would not serve them? How? 4 men say no, the waitress not serve them. How did they know that the waitress would not give them food? So let's look up here. So the Woolworth's lunch counter, like many restaurants, refused to serve African Americans. They refused to serve him. So they knew that they were going to get there and they were not going to be served because they did not serve African Americans. So I'm going to put Q3 right here, and then I'm going to go look at my choices. I, somebody told them. J, the waitress was rude. K, Woolworths did not serve African Americans at the lunch counter. Or L, Dr. King had told them. Somebody had told them. Nope, they never talked about that. Slash the trash for J as well. They never talked about the waitress being rude. Woolworths did not serve African Americans at the lunch counter. That goes very closely with what I just proved, so I'm going to put my maybe dot. And then Dr. King told them. No, they loved Dr. King and they believed in everything he said, but they did not know him personally. So we are going to put K down as our correct answer. It matches our proof up here in paragraph number 2. Okay. So I want you to do the main idea. I want you to do number 4, which is what is an opinion. Remember, facts can be proven. Opinions are what people think or feel. I want you to do the vocabulary for passionately, and then the author's main purpose. And then just give me a quick write on why do you think the Greensboro lunch counter sit-in was so successful. You can respond on Dojo or on Google Classroom. All right. I hope you guys have a great Monday, and I'll talk to you soon.